Welcome to the Rocky Road Podcast, brought to you by Rockbusters, with your host, Dennis Wager. Dennis is a best-selling author and an expert in demolition, rock, and concrete breaking, as well as a professional blaster. He is also president of Rockbusters Incorporated, along with his son, Brian. On the podcast, you'll hear exciting stories of how these challenge types of rock and concrete jobs are done. You learn about the uses of expanding grout and explosive devices. But furthermore, you'll hear about some of the hurdles and struggles entrepreneurs and business owners have had along the way, how they got started, and how they broke through the obstacles and found the path to success. Along with that, some insight for young people and people wanting to get into the industry. So listen in. I hope you enjoy the show. Now, here is Dennis Wager.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the show. I want to welcome on today Curtis Bunch. Curtis is from Northwest Explosives in Oregon, actually Mammoth, Oregon, which is close to Portland. Welcome, Curtis.
Thank you, Dennis. Morning, everybody.
Yeah, how is it going today?
Oh, not too bad. How's things up there in Canada there?
Yeah, it's good. Yeah, it's good. A little bit cloudy and it's nice, not raining. But
thank God.
Yeah, you never know, right? Yeah, it's always kind of one of those things up here. I guess same with you. You guys are pretty similar weather-wise, right?
Correct. Yes.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about yourself and your background. How did you get started in this industry of blowing things up?
Well, I started out in the military in 1983, working with the military with explosives, and kind of took off there and went into construction, after I got out of the service. And I'm going like, building, blowing things up, building. Ooh, guess what? Hey, now we're on the same page. So, then I got back into it in 2015. I got back into it and been doing it ever since, both construction and explosives. So, I'm a small company, just me, and, we're doing okay,
Yeah, good. No, I see you do some pretty cool specialized jobs.
I have in the past. Yes, I have.
Yeah, and you actually went down and did a job for us in Miami. We took out the concrete from a mixer truck that had broken down, and the concrete had hardened up inside of the drum of the mixer truck, and we got the fun task of taking it out of there.
Yes, we did.
Yeah,
in the middle of July.
Yeah, when it's a little bit warm in Miami.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it was a little humid.
Yeah. So how did that one go for you down there? I know we used some smaller charges, right?
It didn't go too bad. We had a few issues, especially where the access plate was on the mixer truck. It was full of concrete, so you couldn't access it. So you had to access it through the back of the drum. So basically, you had to start small with a small rotary hammer to drill holes to place explosives in there, and started out small and had to go bigger, and as you worked your way in, you got a little bit bigger and bigger and bigger, and deeper. So makes it a little easier, a little hard to start with, but we did it. We got it done.
Yeah. What size of charges did you use? Do you remember?
I don't remember. We used some of your Romex, and we used what else did we use? I can't remember. We used some.
I thought it was like the Royax 38 150s or.
Yeah,
like
I believe there were. I believe there were the 150s. It would have been nice to have a little bit smaller ones. That way you could have, condensed them into a pile and actually, got a good thump out of it. But you know what? It worked really well.
Yeah, good. Good. And then after that, then you went on to another job you were telling me about with Idaho Power, doing some pretty snazzy line connections.
Yeah, we did some work with Idaho Power. last year in December. Um, they use a little bit of a what they call a compression fitting or a compression sleeve, which is basically a round cylindrical tube made out of aluminum that is then wrapped with det cord around the side of it, so it crushes it onto the line and makes it a stable connection for that way. There's no air gaps, so there's no way to get water infiltration or air in there to get corrosion within the line, so they can't see it. And they did a lot of studies on this, and they figured out that this is the best way to do this for them. And maintenance wise, initial cost is a little more because those are not cheap. But maintenance down the road will pay for itself down the road. Most of the compression fittings have to be replaced every 20 years. These, they can go all the way up to 50 years.
That's a long time.
Yeah.
So how many wires would you do at a time, or how does it work? Can you tell us?
That's depending on the linemen that are actually working on it. I will just set the charges for them. We'll put the sleeves on and then set the charges. We can do, from 1 to, 40, depending on what they want and how they want to do it. Most of the time they do 3 to 12 at a time, just for safety's sake. But that's up to the linemen and how they want to do it. So we would go up into a bucket truck, slide the charges on there, wire them up, come down off the ground. And the good thing about these charges is that, they didn't even have to move their equipment. All they had to do is roll down the windows a little bit so the concussion didn't, fracture the glass inside the rigs. And we did it. I mean, we did 9 in 1 day, 3 connections of 3 each, because it was coming out of a substation. So it had to come out, make a right-hand turn, and then go down about 400 feet and make a left-hand turn and get into the main line, the transmission line. So this is a whole new line that they were putting in for southern East Idaho.
Okay. And there was miles of line or cable they ran too, right?
They did 87 miles of line work for that job.
Wow.
That went all the way to the Idaho-Utah border.
So what do? They run all the wires and then they call you up and say, "Curtis, come and connect this."
Yep, that's pretty much what it is. It's they'll run them all. First of all, I'll go there and I will splice everything together, all the high tension power line, and then maybe 2 or 3 months later they'll call me, come back out and do the connections at the substation itself.
Okay.
They've got 87-mile a line in 6, 8, 10 spools of wire, and times 3, and then when they get all the poles, the transmission lines, the connectors, the insulators, and all that stuff up on the line, they call me back and say, "Hey, now we're at the substation. Let's go and make a connection."
Okay.
So,
and how much explosive would be in the compression sleeves?
they're using 300 grain det cord, and there's 4 wraps around it, so about 30 feet.
Okay.
And that's actually quite big.
Yeah.
I don't know if you got the pictures that I sent you.
I did. They're very impressive. Yeah, it's
and if you could share them with
that.
the folks, so that'd be interesting, or share them, a link to them.
Definitely are. Yeah.
But I think that Idaho Power, that's an amazing job, and there's a lot of contractors out there that would love to get into that kind of field, and this one here I just kind of fell into.
Yeah. How did that happen?
Our good friend of ours, Jack Peterson, Michelson Power actually called them Jack Peterson, and Jack couldn't do the job. He did not have the time. At that point in time, he was working on a project down at Lake Isabella, strengthening the dam down there in Lake Isabella.
Yeah.
So he called me and says, "Hey, can you do this?" And I go like, "Yeah, not a problem, Jack. Pretty straightforward." But then the problem came. You had to get air. Then you had to come and I had to actually build a manual for Idaho Power to review, a safety manual. And that explained everything, every stage, every movement that was done with those had to be written down in a written policy. And that took me about 5.5 months of nothing but putting that policy together.
Wow, that's intense. How did it work contractually? Did they agree to a price and say, you write the manual and we're going to pay this money and then that covers the whole thing? Or
what it was is a contractual agreement that I put the manual together. The manual is mine. They cannot use it. And then the contractual price was per shot that I did.
Okay.
And I charged them a little over $800 per shot to do that. So it was, if we do 3 shots, that's 3 times 800. So,
okay.
And they supply everything. So they supplied the sleeves, they supplied the lead lines, they supplied that. The only thing I did is I got some more shock tubing to just in case we had to go a little bit further out. So, and that was all I had to supply. And then they supplied everything. They just used my license and me, and we did the job.
Well, that's awesome. And then I know now at least that you have the manual done, and that just doesn't need to be done the next time. You can just go do more, right?
Correct. Maybe have to do a couple updates, but beyond that, the manual was the most intense part of the whole job.
I know. I did the same thing with developing our training course for Royex. With the training course, I hired a college, Vancouver Community College, to help with writing the manual. But it took a long time. It was expensive, and it took a long time. It was one of those tasks that you think halfway through, is this ever going to be over? Is it ever going to finish?
Yeah, that's
and then
true.
Having to get it approved by WCB or WorkSafe, that was a task again, right? So
I'm sure it probably was, because Idaho Power reviewed it, and then they had to submit it to their corporate safety officer. Their corporate safety officer then forwarded on to the state of Idaho for their approval. And then when the state of Idaho approved it, then it came back down to Idaho saying, hey, it's been approved. So, like I said, it was a long, drawn-out process.
And where did Michaels fit into that process?
Michaels was a general contractor for Idaho Power. I was a subcontractor for Michelson Power.
Yeah. So then did they have to review it also?
Yes. Michelson Power was the one who actually started the review on it. And then it was sent to their safety officer, Michelson in Wisconsin.
Yeah.
Wisconsin, they approved it. Then it came back to me for any changes. And then it was put on to Michelson, reviewed it again. And then it went to Idaho Power's regional safety officer, and then it went to their corporate safety officer.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of people involved in reviewing that manual.
Yeah. We have a job that's similar too, and it's putting a person inside of a pipe in a pipeline application, 150 feet down the pipe where it's pitch black, doing some drilling and shooting at boulders that are in the way of the pipe. Mm-hmm. And we've written it, 4 months ago, and it's still just not getting. It's still in a review process.
Yeah. I mean, it was like, because I would send them sections of it, 8 to 10 chapters at a time for them to review, and it would be the same thing, but I would still be working on the other parts.
On the
I
other
had to
parts,
work
yeah.
it. So
Yeah, in this case, they have the project kind of on hold because they can't proceed anymore because they can't get the pipe pushed through anymore.
oh my.
But they can't do it until it's approved either. So
Boy, I can just see the dollar signs
just
chinging up
waiting.
on that one.
Ching ching, just keep going. Yeah, and then you were mentioning too about another exciting job taking out some rock underwater. That was in Oregon too, right?
Yeah, that was in Oregon. That was we did some underground underwater blasting for Union Pacific Railroad.
Okay.
And I'm a diver. Jack's a diver. So I went down and looked at it, and what it was is that they had some scouring under one of their railroad bridge piers, and they were worried about it being shifted out of place and out of line. And they had poured rock and stuff like that to stop the scouring, but it hadn't solved the problem. So we went down and looked at the project. I kind of look at myself and I go like, I don't know if I want to do this one. And then it was like, okay, let's let the engineers come together and find out exactly what they want and how they want to do it. They decided that it would be better to blast it out and rebuild it. And that's what it ended up being. So we had to take it all the way back down to bedrock. And then they put a brand new bridge pier in. It only took, 4 days for Union Pacific to put this back in place. But they couldn't break it out with a hydraulic hammer because they couldn't see what they were doing. And so it was easier just to go down there, drill 4 to 6 holes and stuff it and destroy it that way. But you had to be real careful on how much powder you used in there because you didn't want to blow the railroad tracks up.
Yeah. It's kind of one of those things. You can only press the button once, right?
Yeah. And hopefully the insurance policy doesn't get a phone call going like, hey, you guys.
Yeah, what does this guy do?
Yeah. Because blasting insurance is not cheap. And I'm sure you know that even with a low power explosive, that it's not cheap.
No, it's not. And I think you guys have it way worse in the States than we do here in Canada.
Oregon is not bad.
Okay.
California is impossible.
Yeah.
Literally almost impossible. Washington is not bad. Idaho's not bad. Utah's not bad. Montana and Wyoming, they're looking at you go like, okay, just don't kill anybody on the highway. But, the further back you get in the East Coast, it's like the harder and harder it gets to do any work, that far back.
Yeah, exactly. And then you get into areas like New York and Boston, where it's very difficult. And I think that's really, how the world is evolving. It's just like you get, expenses or you get restrictions that pop up where all of a sudden it's in your best interest to look at alternatives. So like if we can't blast or if it's this expensive to blast, how else do we do it? And what are the options that we have, right?
Well, some of the best options out there is either using a low power explosive, like Roy-X, or expanding grout. I was approached like 2 weeks ago about a guy in Klamath Falls, Oregon, about a rock right next to his house. And so I go like, you know what? Let me call Dennis. So I called you on the phone. We talked about it a little bit. He goes like, hey, that's a perfect job for, expanding grout. And I go like, you know what? You're right. Couple dozen holes. It'll be nothing but gravel, in 2 to 3 days. And I'm going like, perfect. No explosive involved, but it's just, and it's a lot safer than using explosives right around a dwelling, you know?
Well, yeah, exactly. Yeah. And we always do that too when we're close to a building or if we're inside of a building. We have the splitters, but also like we have pneumatic splitters for boulders, which work great. But anything else, we use grout. And now that we have black gold, which goes into the big holes, it's really a game changer because now all of a sudden, guys that are real, the major drilling and blasting companies that have bigger drill rigs, they can drill like a 3-inch or 4.5-inch hole and space their holes out, way further apart. So with a 3-inch, you can space it out about 4 feet apart.
Mm-hmm.
And, if you go up to a 4.5-inch, you can go about 7 or so feet apart.
I use rule of thumb about 6.
Yeah.
But it depends on the rock. It depends on the rock.
On the hardness of the rock. It totally does. Yeah. But it really reduces the amount of grout they use. I mean, you're really using, like about a third of the amount of grout. And for blasters, I mean, they can just drill a regular blast pattern. And if it's in a sensitive area, they can just pour it and go home instead of loading it and just come back and use it the next day it's cracked or the day after. And they just
come in there with some big excavators and just dig out the rock.
Yeah.
Real cost savings in the long run for blasters because your insurance liability goes way, way down. And a lot of people don't understand that, our liability factor in blasting is huge.
Yeah.
Because you could have one stray rock. It was like 4 or 5 years ago, I heard about a blaster. They were doing a complex up in Washington, and the blaster, blasted a rock, and they had a fly rock that went through this lady's house, and she was about a half a mile away. I'm going like, well, that's the end of his career.
Yeah.
And it was. I mean, he lost his license. It was a multi-million-dollar claim just for a hole of, about 4 inches in diameter.
Well, yeah, exactly. And then even you look at, with what just happened there with Alec Baldwin, on that Rust movie set. It's so sad of what happened, but then you get back to the whole thing of like, whether he's, guilty or innocent, it's really going to have a devastating effect on his career, right?
Oh, yeah, it'll have, yeah. And it's a very sad situation that happened there. And there's a lot of things that, are, that you can't fix that. You can't go back in time and fix it.
No, that's right. And even, obviously, I'm sure he wishes he could if he had the opportunity, but it's like us when we press that button. Like, honestly, what I do is I take an extra minute. Like, I give the 2-minute warning, and then I just take an extra minute before I even give the warning, just for myself to kind of rethink things, just in my mind, go through all the connections, go through where's everybody at, where are my guards at, is there anybody in the way, and just have that extra minute to kind of, calm down, get my peace of mind, because you can't take that back, right? Like a minute, nobody even notices a minute.
No, nobody notices, and I will, I hate to say this, but I'm pretty anal about, checking my stuff, and I will walk the site. I will probably walk the site 3 or 4, even 5 times before I push that button.
Yeah.
I want to make sure that, everybody's clear. The guards are in place, the fences are in place, the, barriers are in place. It's a huge liability. I mean, and I'd hate to hurt anybody, and I'd hate to hurt my business and my name, for that, because, there's a lot of blasters out there that, are no longer, because they made a mistake. Their companies are gone.
Yeah, sometimes it's just being careless. Sometimes, you do everything humanly possible and something just happens.
Yeah. There's that oh shit factor.
There is for sure. And then it's always just like I say that, well, you said too, just that extra time that you walk the site or the extra minute that you take, just for that peace of mind and, bit of extra assurance that things are going to go well.
I've even when we were doing some trench work some years ago, we didn't have anybody around us, and I said, I want 200 yards of dirt poured over this section of the blast area. He goes, like, why? I says, because I want it there. It's my name on the trigger, and it's my name on the button.
Yeah.
I says, I don't want any fly rock. And, he looks at me and goes like, okay, you're the one that's running this and the way of putting that trench in. And I go like, I want 200 yards on this area of rock or, of dirt.
Yeah.
He says, okay. And, we had no fly rock whatsoever from there, but it was all the rocks that we had were less than the size of my fist. Yeah. And I guarantee you, we would have had fly rock everywhere if I wouldn't have done that.
Wouldn't have done it, yeah. Well, yeah, that's kind of what you learn when, throughout the years of experience, right?
Oh, yeah. You take your drill log data, how long it takes you to drill a hole. Say you're going, for you Canadians, I'll say meters so everybody can understand that.
Thank
you. So you're going to drill a 10-meter hole. And let's say it takes you 4 minutes for the first 4 meters. And then it takes you 6 meters for the next 2 meters. And then it takes you, 5 minutes for the rest. So that in that band of what you just drilled, the bottom is kind of soft. The middle is super, super hard because it took you so long to drill that. And the top is really, really is not, it's kind of medium hard rock. So that center section is going to need a little bit of a punch. So what you do on that is that you compile your data on your drill logs and you go like, okay, we're going to have to air deck this. Okay. So, and air decking is basically putting an airspace inside your drill hole. So you'll put let's say you're going to put 50 pounds of AMFO in the bottom of the hole. Then you're going to take a plug, basically a plug, and you're going to stuff it down there, and you're going to go down, 8 meters down the hole, and you're going to go over the top of that. Then you're going to put another charge in there, and go with maybe you're going to put 80 pounds of AMFO in there, and then you're going to air deck the top of that hole, and then you're going to cover it, with stemming material. That way, you're going to get your breakage.
Yeah, exactly. One thing, Curtis, any advice you could give to people wanting to get into the industry?
Well, there's a couple of classes out there that are really, really good. American Explosives Group is one of them. Jack Peterson is the one who runs that. He is the president of that, and he does put on classes every once in a while. There's a couple of them in the Mid-East, but I don't know a lot about those guys back there. Okay. I've worked with Jack. I'm an assistant instructor with Jack, and Jack really knows his stuff. And it is a fun class, and then you could work yourself, after you've gone through his class, then you become a C-level blaster. And then I'm an A-level blaster instructor. So, Jack Peterson, American Explosives Group, look him up online. Look at some of the work that he's done. Probably one of the best guys out there. He is a really good instructor.
Okay, that's good info. That's awesome. Yeah, thanks for joining us, Curtis. That was great. Lots of good information, lots of good stuff to take away.
Well, Dennis, I really appreciate you inviting me to your cast. And
for sure.
All the information that, was passed around here, everybody have a good and a safe day. Only push the button once.
That's
That's
it.
the way to do it.
That could be our tagline, right, Curtis? Only
Yeah.
push the button once.
Alrighty, Dennis, you have a great time and have a wonderful day up there in Canada.
Yeah, thanks. You too, Curtis. Take it easy.
All right.
We'll talk soon.
Thanks for joining us. We hope you enjoyed the show. If you would like to be a guest on a future episode and tell us your story, visit our website at www.rockbusters.com. If you have a project and would like to learn more about our products, or if you're interested in partnering with us and becoming a distributor, give us a call. Thanks again. We appreciate your support.